Hey there, this is Perch, and this is a question. So this will be an interesting one. Let's see if I can do this without sitting in front of a computer and getting the history in front of me. But you get the question sometimes, "Hey, where should I start?" And what I mean by that is somebody comes into the comic shop, maybe they watched Black Panther or they saw Suicide Squad, and they have the question, "Hey, I'd like to start reading the comics. Where do I begin?" Because I'm going up to the shelf here and I see that the issue you're selling is part three of a 5-part story, and I don't want to start on part three. So where do I begin? Going to get back issues is not always feasible. Who knows what actual stock you have in house? And then if we're talking about Iron Man or Black Panther or something like that, I don't have $10 million to get all of the issues from the beginning, or the time, or frankly the energy. So where to begin? Well, and by the way, with streaming services and other things coming out where the titles are digital, I have almost zero confidence that they'll do this, but I hope that the publishers will do here's where you start. Here are the key issues. Here's where you begin. I had an idea that a few people, Larry, a few others on Twitter, and I talked about it. It's a good idea, and it's basically a database of sorts. It's where you can come into it and put in, I just watched Daredevil. What comics am I supposed to read now? And to get into Daredevil. And I think that'd be such a valuable thing. It kills me a little bit because it's the publishers should be making that. I mean, they have all these people in theory who could make this, but no. So anyway, so the question is, where should I begin? And let me do a couple, and then I'll do this video more around other titles, but a couple just off my head. So a big one that always comes up is X-Men. Where do you begin with X-Men? And I see that question posted around on Twitter, and it's interesting because it's usually posed to pros, and the pros, I can kind of tell if I'm going to like the pro as a creator or not based on what they answer. So to me, a right answer to that question is um, the Giant Size X-Men #1 is one right answer. The just plain old X-Men #1, Stan Lee, that's another answer. A third one might be right after the Jim Lee era. That's a harder one because there were a lot of changes that taking place, but it was a split from Claremont. So I think the correct answer, as I look at it, is always jump on with a writer that's going to go for a very long run, and that way you kind of get a flavor. And don't jump on in the middle of that writer's run. Try and get to the beginning. And so I think the Giant Size X-Men #1's that is the right place really to start. I think from there you can read, you can kind of get into the spirit. They do a good job of kind of reminding you about the originals, and then you can go forward and backward in the run as your interest takes you. I think that's a very good place to start. And so for X-Men, that's where you should begin. Now that sets you up for a lot of reading. But hey, good news. There's a lot of great, amazing stories in there. So you're going to love the fact that you have to do all that reading. So, and fortunately, there are enough. You can go to a half price bookstore. You can go to your local comic shop. But if you're doing that level of epic kind of run, go to a place like Half Price Books and invest in some of the Treasury editions, some of the omnibus editions. You can get them cheap. You can get 30 issues at a time. You can take them home, phone book style, very Japanese manga style, and that's where you want to start. So that is the right answer. The wrong answer with X-Men that I see from time to time is the Joss Whedon astonishing X-Men. That is the wrong answer on so many levels. That's the wrong answer. That's going to set you up for a very crappy view of X-Men history because it's a very snarky, very kind of punchy written. It's fine. I think I like that run. So don't get me wrong. I think it's a fine run. It's the question though is where do you start? And if you start there, you're kind of you wind up in a weird way giving the finger to the whole Grant Morrison run because there's several things in that Joss Whedon in the very first issue he did with Astonishing that were rebukes of the Grant Morrison run, kind of right off the gate. And then there's other things in there that took a lot of the capital that Chris Claremont built up, both with Colossus and Gene and kind of Genosha and a lot of these different areas, and just blew it in stunts. They were payoffs. So one of the things that writers who work on comics for a long time is they build up a lot of credibility that you can then pay off in the comics, sometimes in quick little ways. It's a gift that new writers get from older writers, and it's one that they should respect and treat with on hollow ground, because that is in some cases years of work that you're being able to take advantage of. So treat it with respect. Um, but I see a lot of people recommend the Whedon Cassidy run, and that's just that's the wrong place. Um, the Grand Design books I think are very, very good. They're a good history run, but I also think they're a bad place to start because so much richness and value comes out of those books if you're familiar with the original material. If you start with those books, you lose a lot of the richness of the actual source material. Another bad place I think to begin, as I mentioned before, is a Grant Morrison era. That too, Morrison was evolving the X-Men, and so if you missed out on the Claremont run and some of the other things, then you're really missing out. It goes without saying, but the current run is a terrible place to begin as well. Not only because the writers are tapping into a lot of X-Men continuity, but because it's you had a couple quick issues, and then whoop, you immediately move into Age of X-Men, and kind of it just does be a messy place to start. Um, I have I have the little twinge in my heart, a little hope that the Jonathan Hickman beginning that he's doing is going to feel like Giant Size X-Men #1. I mean, we can only hope. It's going to really depend on who's in charge of the title, who's going to be truly in charge. Is it going? Are the current writers who are doing it are the current writers of the X-Men books the ones who are going to continue? And Hickman's just doing kind of a one shot or a status quo changing kind of piece, or is he truly in charge? I mean, man, I cannot begin to tell you how amazingly happy I would be if you had a Hickman Remender, and then they'll never get Remender back. But if you could get Hickman and Remender as two people writing the family of X-Men books, oh my God! I mean, just that would be brilliant. And while you're at it, let's tap into kind of one of the new artists. Certainly one of the artists that Remender worked with X Force, and get John Byrne back. Let's do Hickman and Byrne and Remender and one of his favorite cohorts in Black Science, or Seven to Eternity, or what. I mean, just oh my goodness, that would just be an amazing part. But that's where I'd start with X-Men. Flipping over the other side, where do you start with Superman? This one is tougher. I think that because Superman had a couple eras that were just kind of, I don't want to say nonsensical, but they were one and done issues of Superman. In a lot of cases, being a jerk. Uh, he's people joke about him now, but Superman was one callous as he could be character. Those titles are just hysterical now in hindsight, but um, I think the place to start, one option, I'll get the default answer, go all the way back to the beginning, work your way through, but that would be a tough road. You won't make it. Not only is it hard to find a lot of those issues, but you won't survive getting all the way through them. So one option is the start of when Byrne went on the Man of Steel era, and this was kind of post crisis, and he took over the title. That's one probably good place to start, I think, to get a sense of that character. Another one I think would be just after he was resurrected in after the death of Superman. He came back. That was probably another place to begin. And then, it gets tougher. There have been some good runs of Superman, but Superman's a character where you've had some good moments and then some bad dry moments. You had that storyline where Superman decided he was going to be grounded and walk across the country, and that was just a weird thing. Um, you don't have a Claremont like Byrne like what Byrne did for Fantastic Four, or Claremont did for X-Men, or Johns did for Green Lantern. You don't have that kind of real run in my mind for Superman. I think they were off to a great start when they brought Jonathan in, the boy Jonathan, and Lois, and they're married in the family. And I think the Tomasi run. A lot of those, I think that run was off to a pretty epic go of it, but it made way for Bendis, and I think we're in the middle of Bendis, so it's time will tell how that all shakes out. But I don't feel like we're going to get an epic Superman run. I feel like we're going to get um, we're going to get some elevation of Lois Lane. Absolutely, we're going to get some new villains. We're going to get supporting cast. We're going to get kind of some other things out of it. But I don't necessarily feel like we're going to get the iconic Superman just yet. But I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But that's where probably go for Superman. Superman's again a tougher character. You're probably much better off. Whereas with X-Men, I think you can hop on at a certain point and then just read everything. And even some of the like the Casey years and some of the other stuff, you can read through it all and you can get a lot of different flavors, a lot of different storylines. But you get a nice epic run. With Superman, I think you're more picking and choosing books, kind of all over the map. So it's a much harder to just jump on and stay on with Superman. I think you're picking runs. But I don't know. What do you think? What's your favorite jumping on point for X Men or Superman? Do you like this? Would you like to hear more of this? Hope give me some comments. Let me know in the feedback and subscribe. Hit the bell for notification. Make sure you're still subscribed. People apparently have fallen off. I don't know how. I don't know what is going on there. But if you did, sorry, it wasn't me. I don't get rid of you. It's a gift every time I see a new person joining this channel. I'm like, wow. I just my heart melts. I mean it. But thanks for listening this time, and see you soon.